Winston Churchill wanted results. He was impatient with stalemates, frustrated by missed opportunities, and deeply aware that every delay meant more lives lost. After the failure of Operation Market Garden, many expected him to remove Bernard Montgomery from command. To outsiders, the decision seemed obvious. The operation had promised a swift end to the war in Western Europe and delivered instead one of the most painful setbacks of 1944. Yet Montgomery stayed. And the reason Churchill could not remove him was far more complex than a single failed plan. By the time Market Garden collapsed, Montgomery was more than just a general. He was a symbol. He was the hero of El Alamein, the commander who had restored British confidence after years of retreat and humiliation. For the British public, Montgomery represented victory, discipline, and national pride. Removing him would not have been seen as a simple military correction. It would have looked like a public admission that Britain's most celebrated commander had failed, and Churchill knew the political cost of that could be devastating. Operation Market Garden itself was bold, risky, and controversial. Montgomery believed it could end the war by Christmas. Churchill, desperate for a decisive breakthrough, approved the plan despite doubts raised by other commanders. When it failed, responsibility did not rest on Montgomery alone. The plan had been supported at the highest levels. To sack Montgomery would have meant Churchill indirectly admitting his own judgment had been flawed, something he was rarely willing to do in the middle of a war. There was also the fragile alliance to consider. Relations between British and American commanders were already strained. Dwight Eisenhower had chosen Montgomery as his ground commander for the operation, and removing him after the failure could have triggered serious tensions between allies. The war effort depended on unity. Churchill understood that replacing Montgomery might satisfy critics at home, but risk damaging cooperation with the Americans at a critical moment. Montgomery also knew how to protect himself. He was a master of narrative. After Market Garden, he framed the operation not as a failure, but as a partial success that went 90% right. This framing mattered. It gave political leaders just enough cover to avoid drastic action. Montgomery argued that the operation had achieved valuable objectives, tying down German forces and opening the way for future advances. Whether this was true or not, it was persuasive enough to blunt calls for his removal. Another factor was timing. In late 1944, the Allies were already stretched. The German army, though weakened, was still capable of sudden, dangerous counterattacks. Replacing a senior commander during such a volatile phase risked chaos. Montgomery had flaws, but he was experienced, respected by his troops, and deeply familiar with the operational landscape. Churchill feared that removing him might create more problems than it solved. Churchill was also a politician as much as a wartime leader. He understood morale. British soldiers still believed in Montgomery. Many trusted his caution, even if it sometimes bordered on arrogance. Removing him could have shaken confidence across the army. In war, perception often matters as much as performance. There was also no obvious replacement. Any new commander would need credibility, experience, and the ability to work with Allied leaders immediately. Finding such a figure without causing controversy was nearly impossible. Montgomery, for all his faults, was already in place. Ultimately, Churchill chose pragmatism over punishment. He limited Montgomery's influence, adjusted command structures, and ensured tighter oversight, but he did not remove him. The decision was not about forgiveness. It was about stability, politics, and the brutal reality that wartime leadership rarely allows clean, satisfying choices. Market Garden failed, and history remembers it as a costly gamble. But Montgomery survived not because Churchill ignored the failure, but because removing him would have risked something far greater than one flawed operation. It could have fractured morale, damaged alliances, and weakened Britain's position at a moment when unity was essential for final victory.